Hello everyone and welcome back to the next City Skylines episode as we pan out from last week's progress on the shopping district. Today we will be building some suburbs, which I quite enjoyed doing, I have to say. A lot of organic work as opposed to more of the grid style that we've been doing, and a lot of room for creativity, and it really got our population booming, so I would say things are shaping up for this city. Now, of course, it's been a while since my last one. That's sort of just like a regular thing at this point. Nothing I can do about it. I'm just, okay. There usually is something I can do about it, but I just, get lazy. And I think if you're not in the mood to do something, why do it, right? Plus, I only have, 10 people watching me, so, it's not really a big deal anyway. But as you can see, barring that aside, I'm just extending our main thoroughfare infrastructure with these secondary roads, and then the tertiary roads, like this one here, an entrance into one of the developments that I'll be making today. And I tend to consider the suburbs more upscale, because they're sort of away from all the action. They're like a quiet little place, so I tried to make them as nice looking as possible, at least from the air. Of course, you can see me placing these tree-lined roadways with the green pin oak tree, a real nice touch there, and laying them out in a real organic fashion. And you can see I'm not wasting any space, although the design of roads like this in itself wastes a bit of space, but that's not a problem, really, let's be honest. You'll see in the end it looks fantastic. This sort of style of neighborhood here is a little bit more forested because it's close to the shopping center, so I wanted there to be a little bit of a green space before just going all out with the suburbs. And you'll see more of a less overgrown design, I guess you could say. But you might have heard by now, I'm moving on to another topic, what you're listening to. This is, once again, some of my custom music, my solution to just not being able to find non-copyrighted music. I have a keyboard, so why not, right? I know how to play piano, I have a keyboard, why not put it to good use? So I recorded a little bit of a different style. As you can see, it's more acoustic, but it was... maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe it would ruin everyone's immersion. Okay, pretend I didn't say that, I didn't say it. But back to the game, of course, because that's what I should be talking about, not some weird thing going on in the background that no one actually cares about. You can see how I'm laying out these roads. Mostly those tree-lined roads are the ones that are the through streets, and then these little alleyways are the little private drives to each of the houses. And you'll see how I'm gonna have a more sparse feel to this area, even though it looks like the roads are laid out really densely. What you'll see me doing is laying out the zoning in such a manner that the houses take up a 3x3 plot instead of just zoning everything possible. So that way there's a little bit of empty space in between some of the lots. And I think it turned out quite nice, although I would like to change the buildings around a little bit, but like I said, I'm running a little low on RAM as it is, so I don't know how many assets I can fit, and I don't know, it's just a lot of work. But top down, it's looking quite nice. And as you can see right now, I'm extending the highway out. That will eventually lead into the mountains to the resort area, the ski resort area. A lot of tourism in this city, that's for sure. So I'm continuing here with these little alleyways where the homes will be on, the sort of the private roads. And the one thing I didn't want to do is get too close to this road that serves the shopping center, because I feel like it's probably going to end up being noisy once we have the max amount of traffic on it. And you'll see I do, in the end, have some shots of the sheer amount of traffic that we ended up getting in the end. So yeah, it's definitely not something you want to live near. And of course I forgot to put the water lines in, so I did that. And you can just see me going around and laying out these small little plots of land for the houses. Nothing bigger than 3x3. I wanted these to be nice little cottages, and I think it worked out well. Now another thought is heating. This is something that was added with Snowfall, and I think that seems ancient by now, but it is a legitimate issue that the city faces, especially since all of my city depends on electricity for heat right now. So it's taking a good toll on the grid, and I was thinking about maybe next episode having an area for heating, just to serve the downtown area, because I think what ends up happening is that uses up the most. And I could also set a policy to require insulation and all that, and we would see how that works. I mean, it's not really a big deal, but I think it's kind of cool to play around with all the features that the game gives us. And as you can see, you might have seen anyway, all the traffic flowing in through the tunnel onto this side. That is why I'm creating this train line that goes through and will eventually serve all of the suburbs, and then end up in the Grand Central Station downtown, which links it with the subway system. And then the subway system, of course, is just dedicated for serving the downtown area, where the trams are for like the touristy areas. So, and when I get mass transit, which I still haven't gotten, I will use the ski slopes and possibly the ferries to add some more options in. Of course, I wanted this train tunnel to be a little underpass through the underneath the highway. I'm lost for words sometimes here. I'm blah. As you can see, it's just really, it's kind of dug out in the terrain. It's sunken down. It's not much of an eyesore to be had. You could probably look across it if you're standing on the one edge of the little dugout and not even see it. Maybe I'm speaking hyperbole, but that is the intended effect. So of course this will be the first stop in the line that serves the suburbs, and I'm not quite sure yet where I want to take it from here, whether I want to take it off to the right or to the left, or maybe both even. We could have it split off. I haven't decided yet. So now that this is a good time to take a look at the finished suburb that I had. I cut a lot of it out because I think a lot of it was just very repetitive, and we were starting to have a power connection problem with the grid because the train station wasn't being served with electricity. So I placed those windmills there just to have some sort of connection, and of course it boosted the grid by a small amount. Wind turbines aren't that efficient, so wasn't too much of a booster. But I am on to this second neighborhood. Apparently I called it Willow Park. Maybe that's not what I capped it, but either way, this was a different sort of style. You can see I laid out some main roads. None of them are tree lined. The ones that are supposed to be like they almost look thicker on the top down view there they have bike lanes on them. So I think that's a nice effect to add into the suburb. I don't know if that necessarily occurs anywhere, but I think it's a nice addition, and it keeps pedestrian traffic and bike traffic separate. So once again, the road layout is a little more organic, but not as organic as the other one. There is some semblance of a grid, however, it is not anywhere near a square grid or a traditional grid. The roads are parallel to each other, but there's not really any set pattern. You can see it really just curves around everywhere. And I honestly really like the way this ended up turning out. I think this design wastes a lot of space, but when you look at suburbs today, this is how they usually end up turning out. Of course, I included some pathways in there just because when you think about a suburb, I did a lot of research on these because I wanted to get it right, and I never understood why we abandoned the grid of a normal city. And the actual reasoning for that is when they built suburbs, I think the first one was a place called Levittown near Philly, so it's not too far from me. I'm in Pennsylvania, but what they did was they designed the roads like that because it made it feel like you were away from the millions of people in the city, in this case Philadelphia, by having a curved road. You couldn't see for miles down your road, which is good, I think. So I think I get the idea and it makes sense, but the one problem that has always arisen in the world is ease of access. And it's comical because there are neighborhoods where there's suburbs, and if you could spend 10 minutes getting from one side of the neighborhood to the other because there's only one entrance into it, and it's just a labyrinth of like nonsense to get in there. And I feel like that's a little unnecessary. And since the game does so well at providing options to solve our city's problems, I said, you know what? We're making some paths, because that is what a good mayor would do. So I did it. I made some paths, and I even decorated them with like logs and such, as you can see there. I fenced off the neighborhoods just to create some more images of privacy, I guess, because I always think of suburbs as more private. Maybe I just have a really weird view of suburbs. I watch like Silverette on YouTube, for example. In Amar City, he claims he was building suburbs, and I'm looking at him like, what? That's not really a suburb. Now, don't get me wrong, he does amazing work, but I think the American view of a suburb and the European view of a suburb vary greatly, as do a lot of other things, in fact. But that's another subject. We won't worry about that. What we will worry about is what I'm doing right now. So, like I said, this is going to be a more sparse design in terms of the trees. So, like, the other one was very forested. This one is more non-natural landscaping. So just trees that look like they were planted there. So, like, these weeping willow style sort of things along the path. I don't think they're actually weeping willow. I don't know what they're actually called. But, like, I placed the fences in, these little pine trees, and I think it turned out pretty well. So, just to reiterate, once what I did was, oh my gosh, my stuttering is so bad. I don't usually stutter. I'm just like at a loss for words right now. I don't know. What I did once again, and I have these like phrases that I return to. Now I really have to get this point across. what I did was, against the road, if there was an empty lot, I filled it in with trees. But in between houses, nah, that's okay. That was okay. So like the backyards, they were open up. So it gives a open land. That's what the goal was to show. So now what I'm doing is extending this highway back towards where it will go, and I ended up actually getting rid of the streetlights because it was getting away from the city, and I felt that it was a little unnecessary. And when you're looking at the city at night, it really disrupts the view of the natural sort of individual lighting of each house or whatever. It just doesn't make it look as good, I think. And this game, you can get some really, really good night shots, let me tell you. Perhaps you'll see one at the end, I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of people knock the color corrections and all that from just the base game, and they get their own, they make their own. You know, that's fine, you do you. I personally, I think, maybe during the daytime it's not so great, but at night, I feel like this game really shines, and they did a really good job at that, and I honestly wouldn't change it. Now, I've seen, like, darker color corrections where you just get total pitch black if you don't have any lights. That's pretty cool, but, I don't know. I just, I feel it works with what we have now. So, moving on, this area is what I called Rockview Estates, and you can see I just quickly crafted a lake. It's sort of a really oddly shaped lake, but there's going to be houses built around it, and it's not going to just be a development, but there's going to be a park around this lake too, as you'll see in a second. But it's sort of a weird lake, like I said. I placed the source right in the one, like, bigger part of the lake, and then there's like this creek that goes across, so the lake actually moves there, and then it connects to another part. And I wanted the creek, the area around it, to feel very natural, like you were out in the mountains on a hike. So what I ended up doing is placing these more natural foliage, like fallen logs, rocks, and all that. And what I noticed ended up happening is the rocks actually interfered with the water flow, and I had to delete some of them because the water wasn't actually making it into the other side of the lake. So I don't know how realistic the fluid flow is in the game. Many people say it's awesome, but my experience there is, what in the world is going on? Like, it should be going into the other part. So I don't know what I did, but I got it to work eventually. And as you can see, I'm building the housing development around the lake, and I think anytime you have a housing development around a lake, it just gives off a classier appeal. I don't know. So that's sort of what I wanted to go for. And I do think it turned out looking quite nice, so it worked out. And as you can see, I'm just building these pathways along the lake right now, using this open space at the corner of the intersection there, just to do some more organic paths. Now that part I didn't go for the natural look, I went for more the landscaped look, the more procedural look. And of course there's a bike path going around the lake, lots of recreation to do. And there again with the streetlights. I said I was deleting them because I just feel it's far enough away from the city that they're sort of irrelevant at that point. And the same thing with the bike path. I think it's a little disrupting to the ambiance of the area around the lake, so I got rid of it. And the zoning for this, in the other one that you just saw me doing right before this one on the lake, the zoning, what I did was similar to this. spread the houses out, but make them as big as possible. So 4x4 is the biggest, and that is certainly what I tried to do. And I left about 2 spaces between them, so it didn't make everything seem too dense, but it made it feel together, I guess you could say. Not quite urban, but definitely suburban and higher class. It makes the houses look bigger when they're not together. That's for sure. Now, what I'm placing now is some of those park generators that have people go to them. They act as a park, but they can be freely placed. Although it is quite unfortunate that they have a road requirement, but what are you gonna do? So I'm placing rocks. Duh. I think you could have figured that out yourself, but I am placing rocks just to add to that natural feel around the lake, to beautify it. I can't talk. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. And then I started having issues with the hillside, because this is where it starts. And that's a whole nother subject in itself. But I tried to just smooth the terrain out so there weren't any, like, rough patches in the yards and whatnot. And I think it turned out fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. But the mountains in this map are a subject in themselves. I still don't know what I want to do with them, because where I live, if you've been to the East Coast, the Appalachians, they're older mountains. So they've been weathered away, they've been eroded upon, and they're very rounded off. They're almost more like hills. But they're mountains. We call them mountains. They're close enough, right? Then you have the Rocky Mountains. And when everyone thinks of skiing and snow, they think of the Rocky Mountains. And I guess even when everyone thinks of a mountain, they're thinking like a big sharp peak with snow-capped top and all that. Yeah, so I don't know whether I want to go for that style or the style that I have right now. But I think I will rework the mountains and the terrain in the background a little bit in the coming episodes. Whether I devote a whole episode to it or not, I'm not sure. But I think it does need to be reworked, and I am going to try and do that. It might not. I might go for like a hybrid. Maybe have some sharp peaks like in the very back, but then more foothill style type as we get closer to the city. So like right behind the houses would be a more rounded hill. Or over by the industrial section, if you can remember that. There's sort of a hill behind that. Perhaps I could add some features to that hill, because it is a little bit plain at the moment. Ideally, what you see me doing now, I will be doing on those mountains though, because they are completely bare, and that's not going to work out too well. So, here are our ending cinematics. As you can see, things didn't turn out too bad. If you have any thoughts on the way I produce my videos, or how I talk in my commentary, or the things I talk about, or the general tone, anything, the quality, whatever, let me know in the comments, Twitter, whatnot. If there's an asset I should subscribe to, you know where to go. And in general, please rate the video, give me a like or dislike depending on how you felt. And of course, if you really liked the video, a subscribe would be a great look for my reputation. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you next time.